What's up, everybody? It's Michael and Rebecca here,
Hey guys.
and we're here with a former client and good friend of ours, Anna. Anna, say hello to everybody.
Hello.
So
Hi.
we're here today to talk to Anna a little bit about how she made a transition from teaching into the video game industry, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Anna, we're really happy to have you here today, and thank you for joining. So I want to talk about where you are now and get into all of that. But before we do, would really like to just talk to everybody about how you decided to leave teaching and what that journey looked like for you. So if you wouldn't mind kicking us off by take us back for a minute, and we would love to hear a little bit more about how you decided to leave teaching and what led you to that.
Yeah, of course. I'm really excited, because it's been a while since we've seen each other. So being reunited, it's super nice. But yes, hello, my name is Anna. And I guess a little bit about myself a little bit. So I was in education for a while, for a couple years now. And I've taught, from high school to middle school to elementary school, kind of like the whole spectrum. So I first taught abroad in Japan for a while, teaching high school students English. Then I hopped over to third grade, teaching third grade online during the pandemic. And then I switched over to middle school where I taught sixth grade English and history for a couple months. And so it was really fun. I really did enjoy my time teaching. I don't regret going into the profession or regret majoring in education or things like that. But there was a couple of things that kind of was that I saw that kind of made me want to pivot and try something new. So I would say maybe two things that really determined me to kind of walk out a little bit of teaching. So the first one would be kind of burnt out. I know it's really common for teachers to be feeling that burnt out feeling. So for me, I got burnt out mainly from the work-life balance. So in teaching, it's really hard to do work-life balance, in that you have to plan and grade and then also teach at the same time. It's really hard to have time during the workday to actually plan and grade and do all that stuff. So I found myself really taking all my papers home and grading that, and then trying to plan for the next day, trying to plan for the next segment in learning. I just found that to take and consume my whole life. And on the weekends, I would try to turn off the switch, but I found it really hard to really turn it off because I was just thinking about it all the time. And and it was just super stressful, and it started affecting me, and I was feeling really tired and exhausted, and it led to those symptoms of burnt out. So that was kind of one of the reasons why I kind of wanted to try something different. It started affecting me physically, and it started affecting me my mental health. So I was like, ooh, maybe let me try something a little different. But the second reason, I guess, why I left teaching would be, yeah, talking to my students. It was really fun talking with them and seeing their interest in games and media. Kind of rekindled my love for games. Kind of reminded me I really do love video games. I grew up with video games. I have two brothers, so growing up in a household with brothers, all they do is play video games. So growing up, I loved playing that, and then seeing and talking about video games with my students was really, really fun. And I always had it in the back of my head of oh, it'd be cool to work in the industry. Maybe I should try it out, see how it goes. And even when I was burnt out from work, I would come home and play video games to kind of relax. So in a way, video games kind of saved me in a bit. But yeah, I was let me try this thing and see if gaming would work out. And I was I know it's crazy because it's super hard industry to get into, but I was you know what, let me shoot my shot and try it out. So I would say those two reasons are kind of the reasons why I kind of wanted to try something different and move into something else besides teaching. But I did enjoy my time teaching, and I learned a lot, but it was really taking a toll on me. So I was like, okay, let me try something else. So yeah.
So I know for a lot of teachers, the big question is, where do I start, right? Because going into a new profession is so tough. You went to school to be a teacher, you kind of knew what your plan was going to be. So when you did decide to leave, what were some of the first things that you did? And yeah, let's start there.
Yeah, honestly, it was like super scary kind of making that decision because I thought like I would be in the profession for the rest of my life. And so when I kind of realized like I wanted to do something a little different, it was honestly, I was terrified and really scared and kind of like, am I making the right choice? Like, I didn't want to like, sacrifice or like let go of something if something else wasn't gonna like work out. I was thinking of like what if scenarios, like what if I'm not able to pivot? Like what if I left my current position and then I'm not gonna be able to come back? So I was like having these like thoughts in my head, but I was like I knew I had to like do something a little bit different. So the first thing that I did was like, okay, now where do I start? Was I kind of just made a LinkedIn account. That was like my first step because um, I saw that a lot of job ads were there, and I saw like lots of teachers were going on LinkedIn, and so I was like, oh, you know what? Let me try making a LinkedIn account. Let me make a LinkedIn profile. And I was kind of researching how to make a LinkedIn profile, and then I started kind of connecting and growing and kind of researching like what the jobs were, see if I could find any other teachers that were like experiencing a similar feeling that I was feeling. I also had like LinkedIn Premium account just because you can see like a little bit more statistics of like what jobs you would be like a high candidate for, and also you had like the LinkedIn Premium account, and that's where actually I met you guys there through the LinkedIn Premium account. I remember like Rebecca was like talking and commenting on another teacher's post about transitioning, and then Rebecca was like, oh, like feel free to message me if you need anything, to that educator. And I was like, you know what, let me reach out to Rebecca and see if I could like share my story and see if like she could help me out or give me some advice. So kind of like started the snowball effect. And I was really excited to like message you, and then you messaged me back. So yeah, definitely LinkedIn. I started there. Another thing that I used was a Facebook support group for teachers. I have two Facebook support groups. So the first one is called Life After Teaching, and the second one was called Life Beyond Teaching, or Teaching Beyond the Classroom. Um, so I joined these two Facebook groups as like a support system to see like, oh, I wasn't alone. Like there's a lot of other educators that are feeling the same way, that are feeling burnt out, and it was like really like reassuring to see that I wasn't alone in this journey. And a lot of teachers were like sharing resources, and they were sharing like tips for resumes, and then they were sharing like what their new positions were. So a lot of teachers were like going into marketing, like recruiting, data analysts fields, and I was like, oh, so like it is possible to like switch over. And so joining the Facebook groups like Life After Teaching like was so good because it was a great support group. And so yeah, I think those were like my first steps after teaching, was just kind of reaching out, joining LinkedIn, joining the Facebook group because I didn't know where to start. And so those places were a good place because it was like teachers were like sharing all those resources. And yeah, so that's where I started. And it was a great foundation for me, especially like after deciding like, oh, I want to do something else, do something different. So for sure, yeah, those two things, LinkedIn and the Facebook groups, helped so much.
Yeah, thank you for sharing some of those resources because, for other teachers watching this, I'm sure it'll be helpful. And I know the point that you touched on, for people who are, kind of thinking about like some of those next steps and then feeling like, well, what if I, can't actually make a pivot? Or, what if, I can't do this? Or, how am I going to actually do this? Where are these next steps going to be? I know that those are really common feelings from others that we've talked to. So, I'm sure it's good to hear that you're not alone and feel some of that.
Yeah, for sure. I was like super scared. I was like, oh, am I making the right choice? Because I was like, Although it was like really stressful and like teaching was like a stable position because there was always going to be a position for teaching. But like then letting go of that, I was like, oh boy, so scary. But I was like, I needed to kind of do something that was, follow a bigger passion and a bigger dream that I had, and kind of like find a better like work life balance. So yeah, so I totally understand how those educators are feeling if anyone's watching that. So
Yeah, it's super cool. We worked together for a few months, and we've been in touch since. And I guess I actually didn't really know how we got connected, because I was on the other side of it. So I actually didn't know that story. So that's cool that's how you got connected with us. Kind of thinking about uh, your transition, and thinking about the way that you made your transition. One thing that stands out to me is kind of thinking about, excuse me, thinking about needing to clarify, right? And clarifying what you actually wanted. I know we talked a lot about, I don't know what I want to do when you first came in. And but you knew that you loved games, and you knew that you would love to have a role in gaming. So how did you kind of make that decision? How did you decide that that was the direction that you wanted to go?
oh yeah. So I kind of like went into gaming for a couple of reasons. First, I was just thinking about a time like how gaming kind of like made me feel a lot happier when I was in like a little low point in my life. So I was like, oh, like playing video games are super fun and it was super cool. And so I kind of reflected, I kind of self-reflected about that and how like I had a really great time playing video games growing up. And I always thought in the back of my head too, like, oh, it would be so cool to work in gaming. Like, it'd be so cool to like to be a part of this industry and like help support, bringing things to life and stuff. But I never knew how to do it, and I know that like artistically, it's really difficult. So it's like, oh, maybe like it'd be interesting to see how the business side works. And so I started doing more research on LinkedIn, kind of looking up like video game companies. And seeing like what kind of roles they had just to get an idea of like what's on the business side, like what can you do on the business side. So I would look at the job ads certain video game companies had, and then I would like look at the employees profiles. So I would like look at like what their roles were, what they're doing, and then kind of from there I kind of narrowed it down to like what was like interesting to me, or maybe what I could see myself doing in gaming, especially like, based on like seeing the job ads and seeing people's profiles. And I was still like kind of like not sure what to do or what to pivot. I know that was something that we talked about when I was like working with you guys. So based on like researching on those kind of things, it kind of landed on like marketing. Or at first I thought like, like it's really fun to see like all the gaming Twitters and all the gaming social media like interact with their fans and like, promote like new releases and things like that. So I was like, oh, maybe it'd be fun to be like in the marketing team and help promote that. Um, and so that was like my initial thought of getting in. And then I was kind of like reflecting a little bit more. And then maybe I was like, oh, maybe like I can be like a on the data side, more like the analyst side. I see like a lot of teachers kind of like pivot into the data analyst role or the business analyst role. So I was like, oh, I could probably see myself doing that. And not only that, like I had a lot of like data experience from like my time in education. Like a lot of educators work with some form of data. So I was like, oh, maybe I can do like some kind of business analyst of some kind. So kind of like self-reflecting and going down the like bullets of like what I like to do and what was on demand right now in the industry. I kind of narrowed my options and kind of like settled on like, okay, what can I do? And I narrowed it down to those specific roles and stuff. So yeah, so it was just stemming from a childhood passion, and I loved education, but gaming was definitely a bigger passion, and so that's kind of the reason why I kind of wanted to focus, and that's kind of how I narrowed it down to like specific roles in gaming. So yeah, that's kind of how I went about and those reasons, and I just wanted to have fun in a job. Like I wanted to like have a role where I look forward to going to work every day and like talk about video games. Like, that's so cool. That'd be really fun. So that's why I kind of narrowed it down to the industry. So
And
yeah.
you mentioned something that I want to kind of pull out and, just kind of address the audience right now too is, obviously we're talking about Anna's transition into video games, right? But this is cross applicable to so many other things. Like some of the things I heard you talk about was a lot about passion, right? You are really passionate about that space, and that there are jobs kind of on the business side of things for virtually every kind of company, right? I know a lot of folks go into the EdTech space. It's a very common place. Honestly, we work with a lot of clients that go that direction. One thing that stood out for me with you was something where you were willing to say, well, any area is going to have a HR, any area is going to have a sales team, any area is going to have a marketing team. I want to take the stuff that I learned in the classroom and I want to apply it to a space that I'm just super passionate about. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to talk a little bit about the process that you went through when applying for jobs, because I know that we spent some time when we were, working together on tailoring resumes and, focusing on how to do that, which is something that, is so important for anyone making a career transition. But when you started sending out applications and you were looking at, those types of roles for, analyst roles or marketing roles and, kind of having that focus within the gaming space, did you have any sort of turning point in that search where you felt like, okay, like this is working, I'm getting it? Like, was there a light bulb moment at any point where it just felt like things started working for you or clicking for you?
Yeah, for sure, definitely. It took a while though. It wasn't like it wasn't overnight, I would say, but um definitely when I was like sending all those applications out, I didn't know or understand really what it meant by like tailoring your resume. I know like we were talking about this a lot in our program, and a lot of, people who give tips out on LinkedIn as well, they say tailoring your resume is super important. And I wasn't sure how to go about that process because I haven't had much experience prior, you know, pivoting with resumes too much. So I was like, how do I go about doing this? But I would practice every other day, trying to tailor my resume. And so what I would do is I would look at like specific job ads and like see the verbs, or like the responsibilities, and I tried connecting it to my previous experience or my previous skills in education or my previous roles, and tried to like build the bridge, because in education we have a lot of like academic education vocabulary that is used in education resumes. So I had to like come to terms of like I have to get rid of all that like teacher jargon that I had, and like get rid of it, because like in corporate worlds, like they don't understand what those words mean, or what, how that works or how that applies over in a corporate setting. So I had to like kind of start from scratch, and then every time I saw a job ad that had like specific verbs or specific roles, for instance, like maybe tracking data, I had to think back to my time in education or my time previous experience and be like, okay, so this job wants me to track information or maybe track data. How can I, what experiences did I have in my time in education that I actually tracked information or tracked data? And so I would like sit down and kind of write down like, okay, I tracked data, using student grades. I tracked data using student experiences, and like put them all together in a Google sheet. So then I tried making like a list of what can like count as like tracking and managing information. And then I used, those experiences and added it into my resume so that it can like transfer over to the role that I was applying for. And I was also following your format when it came to resumes, which is like the responsibility plus impact. Like you want to make sure that you're telling your responsibility, but show like the impact that you made. So maybe like I tracked 30 plus students daily, seeing and managing grades or something like that. Like you want to make sure like you're describing how much of an impact I was doing in my time in education. So it took a while for me to get there, but I would just practice every single day and send out all those resumes, all those applications. And I would say before I started getting back like rejection emails or like opportunities for interviews, it was like halfway in my journey of like transitioning over. I would say maybe like out of the 3 months that I was searching, maybe like a month and a half in, it started really clicking a little bit more. And that's when I started seeing responses. Even if it was a rejection email, that to me said that, oh, they actually looked at my resume. Or if, they wanted an interview, I got really excited because it's like, oh my gosh, they want an interview. That means they saw my resume and that, they thought I was a pretty good candidate. So yeah, it was really, really nice to see that and practice. But it takes practice. So I just practiced every single day with many job ads and on LinkedIn. And even if I didn't submit it, I would still practice writing resumes each and every day. And I wouldn't want to send the same resume. You would want to make a different resume for each specific like job ad that you wanted. So that's kind of like what I did, and it took a while, but it was really good when I started seeing those results a couple weeks in. So
Yeah, I definitely cannot overstate the importance of tailoring the resume for, every job that you're applying to. And, that's one of the reasons why, we focus so much on trying to, teach those strategies on how to do that and tailor them because, having a perfectly, written resume may only be relevant to one particular role. And so, really knowing those skills to be able to say, okay, they're looking for this. How do I, update my verbiage and show them that I can do this? Is really, so important. And I also want to reiterate the point too that you touched on for folks watching this back about the impact of what you did. So you mentioned, how we talked about not just putting like a list of responsibilities, but also putting the impact of what you did. So having, numbers and metrics so that you can show actually how you accomplished those things because that is so much stronger and is proof of what you did. So I'm glad that that helped. I definitely want to talk a little bit more about landing your role in gaming. But before we jump into that, do you have a rough idea of how many applications that you sent out before you started hearing back for interviews?
ooh, I always see on LinkedIn like people saying like, oh, I did 200 applications or 300 applications. I wouldn't say my applications are like that high in number. But I think in the 3 months that I was searching, so it took me about 3 months to land my current role. From the time I officially like stepped out to right now is about 3 months. So in those 3 months, I actually went back to my LinkedIn account and like counted all my applications that I submitted on LinkedIn, and I counted 40. I was like, oh, that's a lot. It's a lot. I'm not sure if it's a lot, but yeah, 40 applications. Maybe it's a little bit more. Maybe like I would say like maybe 50 max. But that's over a course of like 3 months. So it'd be about like an application every other day. And I tried not to apply on the weekends because I just kind of wanted that like mental like break from job searching and stuff. So I would say like I would apply every other day to one job. And of those 40 applications or so, I only had about three interviews with three different companies prior to landing my current role. So, when I got often it was just rejection email, but my first interview for a company was for a marketing assistant for an education publishing company. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Maybe I can do like join the ed world. The second interview that I had was for a management position for a small company, like a small HR company. And that was really cool, but I felt like I didn't really fit very well. So I decided not to move forward with that one. And my last one was for a sales coordinator role for a toy company. So that one was really cool because I thought like, ooh, toys, like that's really cool, like working with toys every day. So yeah, so out of 40 applications, I had 3 interviews before landing my current role. So it's like such a big number, but such a small percentage. But I'm still really happy that that people still saw my application and then they thought I'd be a potential good fit and they considered me, they gave me a shot, and I was like really happy. So even if I had a couple interviews, like I was so happy. I was like, oh my gosh, I got an interview. I'm so excited. But then also very nervous. But yeah, it was like really good. So yeah, 40 applications was what I had.
So I know you started getting, it went from at the beginning, and you kind of had mentioned this, that you had some traction a little bit, and then it started clicking, and then things started kind of moving a little bit faster. What do you think made that biggest difference in your applications getting noticed? Like what was that turning point for you?
I would say a couple of things. So, specifically for like the marketing and management interviews that I had, I think tailoring my resume to my educational background and the potential of like tailoring my resume to a management position, like having teachers manage stuff and marketing, the potential to market products, especially for an education publishing company. So I thought like tailoring my experiences in that kind of field in education really helped a lot. And I think that like my experiences in education really helped with my applications getting noticed for those specific companies. But I think for specifically like the toy company and my current company, I think the deep passion that I had for like, media and games, and kind of showing its like influence and impact that it had on me since a young age, alongside tailoring my resume kind of made the difference because I guess they saw how passionate I was and they're like, oh yes, we need like someone who's very passionate, enthusiastic about, the toys or the work stuff that we're working on. So I was like, I think that kind of helped a lot. Getting noticed for those type of roles. But I think overall in all interviews getting noticed, I think it was definitely tailoring my resume and then showing my passion in my cover letters, like showing how enthusiastic I was and how passionate I was in my cover letters kind of helped a lot too. So yeah.
So, had you made any connections and networked with folks in the company that you're in now before you started working there?
um I did actually, like, I did send a lot of connections to a lot of people, so not just, like, those in my current company, but, like, those in companies that I was, like, interested in, and, I would just send, like, a friendly connection request saying, like, "Oh, I'm really interested, getting to know what the work that you're doing. I would love to connect," or, like, "These are, like, my experiences. I'm very interested for this particular role. I would love to connect with you." Um, but it kind of varied, so not all the people that I, like, sent connection requests to, like, accepted it, and we can't really say for sure if it was, like, a factor in me getting interviews because I sent a lot of requests, connection requests, and we did connect, but it didn't necessarily mean that I was able to get an interview. So responses varied, but, I genuinely just wanted to connect with others and get to know what they were doing because I was just really curious about like, hey, what's it like working at this particular company or what's it like, being a marketing person. Like I was just genuinely curious and yeah, so yeah, I can't say for sure if it did help in getting an interview, but I mean, I always had fun connecting with others, but I would say like, it doesn't hurt to try to connect. And if it does help get noticed, that's wonderful. But it's not like a guaranteed, like, if you connect, you will get an interview stuff kind of thing. But I had fun connecting. So,
Yeah, and I think, you brought up a really good point too, in that, a lot of times connecting really should be more about the connection, right? You want to connect with these folks because you want to learn more about the roles that they have, and less about, being the creepy cold sales DM person that we all hate on LinkedIn, right? So I think you were doing it exactly the way that you should.
Yeah, I definitely, have seen with, other people that we've talked to as well, the importance of building that network, right? As you're going through your career transition and making those, relationships with folks, not for a, transactional reason or, to, try to get something out of it, but just to, make connections and, build those relationships because, that can definitely pay off. in the end. I want to go back to something that you mentioned too when you were talking about getting the interviews, because you mentioned somebody talking about your cover letter. And I remember too hearing about the feedback that you got in an interview, and they were excited about your cover letter and told you that they really liked it. Something that we have heard, and I'm sure something that folks have seen on LinkedIn. You'll see things out there about, oh, cover letters are dead. Nobody reads cover letters anymore. But that wasn't necessarily your experience, right? Or at least not, in some circumstances, because you had a cover letter that did seem to make a difference.
Yeah, I think it really does play a role. Like, for like all the interviews that I had, for like from the marketing role, to now, like cover letters weren't necessary. It wasn't like on the application they said you have to have a cover letter, but I was like, I kind of wanted to provide context onto why I was applying for this position and kind of like provide context of like, yeah, I may come from like an educational background, but here's what I can offer. Here's what my skills are. Here's what I'm passionate about. And I hope that you may consider me in this particular role. So like in all my positions, like even when I was those 40 plus applications, I sent 40 plus cover letters as well, because I was trying to tailor my cover letters to those experiences and kind of just give them context, because I'm sure like people would be kind of wondering like, oh, why is this person from education trying to apply for this role that has nothing to do with education, and like how would this benefit our company? So I made sure to like make those cover letters so I can, give that context and show that passion of be like, yes, I'm very passionate. And it really did it did help and make those difference, because in all the interviews that I've had, I did get compliments on my cover letter saying like, oh, it was really fun to read and I really liked your cover letter. It's really memorable and it really stuck with people. So I think everyone should do a cover letter, even though like the application may not say it's required. I would always do it just to go up and above and beyond and like show context and show your passion, because the cover letter may make or break your application. It doesn't hurt. Like it doesn't hurt at the end of the day to add a cover letter, but it's definitely a plus, and it can more help you more so than to hurt you. So yeah, so I really did like writing my cover. I still have all my cover letters, and I look back to them and I'm like, oh yes, it took a lot of effort, but I'm so proud of them. So
Yeah, no, that's awesome. 100%. And customizing it, really is the key there. So as far as, once you did get those interviews, and I know we spent some time, too, when we were working together on, trying to make sure that you were prepared and, kind of working through, because it, had been a while since you had been through an interview process. And I know interviews, for education are so much different than, interviews for the corporate world. So how did it feel going through the interview process? And was there anything that helped you to feel more confident going into those?
yeah, for sure. First things first, like when I first got like the interviews, I was so nervous. Like I was like, oh my gosh, I was like super excited, but at the same time, I was like very nervous because I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't know what it's like. And like education interviews are definitely so much more different than like corporate interviews, because I didn't know what it was like and stuff. So I was definitely nervous, and the nervous trait of mine is talking super, super duper fast. Like sometimes like I speed run and like nonstop just like go off at 5 million miles per hour. And I think definitely what helped was just having a mock interview to help build my confidence. Like I know we did a mock interview, and I know like your feedback was like, yeah, I speak very, very fast. And like I didn't realize how fast I was speaking until like I watched like a playback video later on of like me speaking, and I was like, oh my gosh, I am going very, very fast. So I think even if, practicing with like families and friends, like after, having a practice mock interview, I still practice with my friends. I still practice with my family just to get all the jitters out, because it's definitely nerve-wracking to go into interviews. But, I was just like, I'm going to practice, be nervous, mess up in the mock interviews. And so that I can like relieve that stress, so I can be a little bit more confident going into the actual interviews. And yeah, and I think that helped a lot. And another thing that really helped too was, practicing the common interview questions that, many interviews might have of like, tell me about yourself, or what's your greatest strength, what's your greatest weakness. So like practicing those common interview questions really did help a lot, because in almost all my interviews that I've had, like some way or another, like those things were kind of touched on. Like, tell me about yourself and your weaknesses and your strengths. So I think it's really good to like practice those common interview questions as well. And so that when you do see it in a real interview, you're like, yes, I know that question. I know how to answer it, and you can be more comfortable with it. So yeah, for sure. And especially my last tip that I have to like kind of help me build my confidence was definitely like writing sticky notes. And kind of like inspirational sticky notes, or like little notes to remind myself during the interview. Like I had it on my computer. All my interviews were like through Zoom and stuff. So I kind of had sticky notes saying, relax, slow down, breathe, it's okay, like you'll be fine. And kind of like having like bullet points of like what I wanted to say. And then, I had like a little note that said, it's a conversation, not an interrogation. So, going into an interview, people think it's like they're going to interrogate you and ask you all these questions. But I'm sure like the interview people are just as nervous as you are. And so, trying to frame it as like a conversation, you're just like, hey, like getting to know them just as much as they're getting to know you would help like set the tone and mood so that you're not as nervous, and then it keeps the flow going. And then the last sticky note that I had was, just be myself and smile. Like, at the end of the day, it's just like, you're just getting to know someone, and, you want to be yourself. You don't want to pretend to be someone you're not. So I just reminded myself, smile and just be myself. And it really helped a lot. And with those kind of 3 tips that I had, like I felt more confident and I felt more comfortable. But of course, like, I'm always like learning and growing, and it's still kind of scary, but it's not that bad once you get that practice. So yeah, I think those were the 3 tips that I had to help me build that confidence in interviews. So I feel so much better.
Yeah, I know that that's never easy, going in, especially when you're out of practice. And, that's why it is kind of nice, even though nobody likes to watch themselves back, right? When you're watching it on camera. But then, it does help you to kind of pick up on some of those things and realize, oh, maybe I am talking a little bit faster. Think about, feedback, so that you don't have, memorized or rehearsed answers, but, you're prepared and you've gone through at least some general, things where, like if they ask me about this, maybe I have a story in mind where I can, reference that, or, kind of how to answer some of the most basic ones. So I think that practice is really key.
Yeah.
So you may not know this. This actually may be something that you don't know, because we keep a lot of data to try to figure out like where people are and what's been going on. So when you started working with us to getting your offer was almost 14 weeks to the dot. So it's about 14 weeks of time. Knowing that, that process did take some time. I mean, you mentioned, it was a few months, right, of going through. Did you lose hope at any point? And, from there, how did you stay motivated to make that transition?
Oh, that's a really good question. Yeah, it's like I definitely did have my like lower moments. Um like especially at the beginning, I was like really hesitant and wasn't sure like if I was able to like kind of transition into another field. And I think it's like really common too. A lot of people, not just in education, may find something that they want to try something new. So I definitely struggled in the beginning, thinking like, oh man, after getting all those rejection emails or being like ghosted, I was like, oh man, like, it kind of took a little toll on my confidence. But I kind of like reminded myself to have like a growth mindset and kind of look like, I may not be good at resumes yet, but I will improve and I will get better. Same thing with cover letters. I was like, I may not be good at cover letters right now, but I know I will improve and get there soon. So I was trying to see like the positive side of things. And another thing that kind of helped me build my confidence, I would say, was kind of seeing others in education pivot into gaming. So I thought like I wanted to research and see like, am I the only one that would like be able to like pivot into this field? Um, and I saw that someone on LinkedIn worked at my school district and actually pivoted into gaming, and now was a senior, in a senior position at a company. And I kind of reached out to them, and asked them if they can provide advice because we did work at the same district, and now they're in gaming at a senior level. And I was like, that is so awesome. Like, how did you do it? And he gave me great advice and reassured me that like, there's other people from education that do pivot into gaming. He's like, it's not impossible, but you can do it. It is possible. And so seeing that like gave me kind of inspiration and kind of hope that like, yeah, like, it is possible. It's not impossible. And not only that, like I saw on LinkedIn a lot. I was doing a lot more research on LinkedIn, and a lot of people in the industry, don't come from like common backgrounds. Like a lot of people like don't come from like studied gaming and then entered the gaming field. Like some people may have studied education or may have had an English degree and now do marketing. Others have like an education background and then do recruiting. Others have like, different aspects and then enter gaming. So it's like, I've seen people from all over enter the field. So, and seeing specifically like education, people from education enter gaming, it gave me hope because I was like, okay, I'm not the only one that has had an education background and has pivoted into gaming. So it gave me that reassurance that I needed. And yeah, and that kind of helped me push through the dark times and um, motivated me to keep going, even with all the rejection emails I was getting. So, you know, that for sure like gave me like a beacon of hope. Like I'm not alone in this journey. There's other people that went through the same thing, and I can do it too. If they can do it, I can do it. So yeah, so that's something that like helped me, stay motivated throughout the whole 14 weeks until I got my current role. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice because it is a process, right? It takes time regardless of how you look at it because there are steps along the way. Thinking about some of the things that we worked through together of trying to figure out what type of roles that you're applying for, and like that clarity piece, and then trying to think about okay, now how do we tailor resumes to those roles, and then learning that process takes some time, as you saw, from there kind of going into talking about presenting yourself and working on those cover letters like you did, and then finally into the interview step. It's a process, and takes some time. So it's good to hear some of that guidance for how you stayed motivated along the way. So now you've been in the job for a month and a half, right? So we'd love to hear an update, for everyone. How has everything been going, and how do you feel now that you are in your new role?
Oh, that's so awesome. Honestly, I'm very, very happy. Like just thinking about my job, I'm like smiling nonstop. It's been great. Like I used to have like anxiety, panic like attacks on Sunday nights, just like thinking about going to work the next day. Teachers in education call it Sunday scaries. And it's so sad that it's like a term in education that like, teachers have like panic attacks Sunday night because they have to go to work the next day. And I used to have those feelings of anxiety Sunday nights, but now I don't have those feelings of anxiety. Now I get to enjoy my Sunday all day and relax. And I just go to work, clock in, do what I need to do, clock out, and relax. Like I don't have to think about work. It's not on my mind when I clock out. I can relax. I can actually like do the things that make me happy and do things with my family and go out with my friends on the weekend. So it's such a great work life balance. Everyone on my team is so supportive, so kind. They're so funny. I love my company. Honestly, it's a dream company. I never thought I would be working here, but I'm so happy. So yeah, like I'm just having a blast, and it's everything. It lines up with everything that I would have wanted in a position. And, it's so great. And I was like, I'm just forever grateful to, be working with my team and forever working in this company. It's just, I'm just over the moon. So it's so happy, like, you know, going to work every day and smiling. It's just super fun. So I love it. I love it. It's a great time.
You know, and obviously we're super happy for you too. Honestly, I'm probably a little bit jealous, if anything. You know, is there anything that you want to share with those who are watching about what you want, you know, about going for what you want and about getting, you know, kind of that dream job?
Yeah, I would say like if you're watching and you're thinking about doing something else, I guess like if you want to like, you know, pivot from education into something else, or even if you're not in education, you kind of just want to do something different. It takes courage and it's really scary, but it's like, you know, it's just that one step, like take it one step at a time, and it's never too late. And I had actually like this awesome college professor that I had in university. He was a sweet like old man that like taught guitar, and his classes were very very small, like 5 people. And I remember he took us out to get pizza one time, and he told us a really good tip of advice that like I thought of when I was trying to transition. And he said that like, you know, sometimes you major in something and you may not necessarily like end up working in that field when you graduate. And he said, and it's okay. He's like, it's not a bad thing. And you know, it's never too late if you do want to change. He's like, look at me. He's like, I'm an engineer. I studied engineering and here I am teaching music here at this university. He's like, I was an engineer for a couple years and was like, nope, I don't like it. And now I'm a music teacher. He's like, so, you know, don't feel bad if you end up studying something or doing something and you don't like it. And he's like, it's okay. And at the time, I was like kind of naive and I kind of was like, oh, but I'm going to stay in education for a long time. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to change. And then when I was going through the whole process of trying to find something else, I thought back to that like sweet professor and I was like, oh, he was so right. And his words of advice just kind of like came back to me. And I was like, yeah, it's, you know, like it's not a bad thing and it's okay. So if you do want to change, it's never too late and you'll get there. It's just got to keep trying. So I think that would be kind of like my kind of advice or wanting to share. Like if you want to do something, it's okay. You can do it. It's just it'll just take some time. So yeah.
I think we're both certainly guilty of having the degree that does not directly apply to what we're doing. I mean, to me, even though that's the case, like I got value out of getting that degree. I'm an English major, you know, and but our experiences are our own, right? And the way that we get to where we get is just a part of that journey.
Yeah, I've always been, you know, a really big, you know, proponent of, you know, a career path does not have to necessarily be linear, right? You know, there can be things along the way where you're learning and you're growing, and maybe at some point, you know, you want to do something different. You know, like when you realized that you wanted to go into gaming, and you know, so it's never too late to decide that you want to do something different. And you know, even though it is, you know, scary, it's definitely possible. So I'm super happy for you, Anna, and where you are now, and really happy to hear how awesome that things are going for you. So, do you have any other advice that you would give to teachers or folks watching who are, you know, thinking about trying to make a career transition, aren't sure what to do next, or maybe feeling a little bit stuck?
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely recommend like sharpening your skills in like resume and cover letters. There's a lot of resources online, and learning how to tailor your resume and cover letters would definitely help at first. But before that, I would really like suggest like kind of figuring out like what you want to do. I know for me, it's like I wanted gaming, but I wasn't really like I wasn't sure specifically at first what position or what role until like later on, until I realized I wanted to be like working with data and stuff. So I would kind of like figure out like what is it that you are interested in, like what role do you would like to do next, and kind of do research on that role, see if you would fit, and then like start tailoring your resume to that specific role and like really try to like send those applications. And if you like need extra support, I definitely recommend Rebecca and Michael if you need that extra support. I really needed that extra support too. And I'm sure you guys have like resources for teachers, correct? If that's possible.
Yep, we have a couple of free resources that you can find on either of our LinkedIn's, and we can make sure that those are in the description for this video. But we've got a resume guide that talks about some of the common reasons why we see, why your resume may not be getting noticed. And then also a teacher guide that is for teachers who are just, thinking about getting started and looking at that. So I really appreciate that, Anna. And, I know for people who might be thinking about, should I, work with someone, or should I, kind of, navigate this? What were some of the benefits for you about, kind of having somebody to support you during that, transition? What do you think were some of like the biggest things that made a difference for you?
For sure. For me, like, I'm someone that like loves feedback and like, like giving me like ways to improve and how I can better improve that. So like for me at least, I knew that like if I was gonna work on my resume and my cover letter, I wasn't sure if I was actually like doing it properly or a correct way, or I wasn't sure how to tailor it the right way. So for me, like, I really wanted a second opinion and second thoughts on like how my resume was like and my cover letters were like. And so like working with you guys, like you guys gave me like really good feedback and saying, oh, maybe you can like try it out this way. Maybe like, you can reword it in a particular way. And so like, going back and forth and giving that feedback to improve really helped me a lot because I didn't want people to like write my cover letters for me. Like I wanted to like learn actually how to write and learn the skills to write cover letters and resumes because you may have someone do it for you, but like if you have 40 plus jobs you're applying to, it's going to be really hard to have that same person do it for you. So it really benefited me, at least working with you guys, having that second opinion, having that feedback, and like those tips and tricks on how to go about improving my skills. So then I really improved and I was really proud of myself because I put a lot of effort and a lot of work into improving my stuff. So yeah, I think that would be something if you are a type of person that you like feedback and you like a second opinion on how your writing is and the strategies, that's when I would suggest, reach out maybe to Rebecca and Michael or someone, even a friend, even if like a friend or a family member or someone else, like to give you that second opinion because you never know. But I needed that, and that's how it helped me a lot. So, don't give up, and you're not alone.
So, any final words of wisdom that you'd like to impart on our folks before we close out?
Yeah. First and foremost, it's like I understand how people feel when it comes to like switching a position. It's really scary, and you feel like you're never gonna get out of like of your role. You feel like you're never gonna get out of like um, your current position. You might feel like really depressed and really sad, and maybe thinking negatively. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. Like you will get there. It'll take practice and it'll take a lot of effort, but you can do it. It's possible. It's possible. So don't give up. Feel free to connect. I don't mind connecting. And building and helping others. It's like, yeah, so just don't give up. And it's gonna be hard, but you'll get there. There is light. So, yeah. So that's would be my word of advice. Trying those who want to maybe make a switch is yeah, it can be possible. So don't beat yourself up too much because yeah, it can be done. So
Awesome. Well, it's been so great having you, Anna, and I hope that this has been helpful for anyone watching this. If you do have any other questions for Anna, we have a couple minutes, so feel free to drop them in the comments, and we can, see about anything else. Or if you found this helpful, let us know. Hopefully, this has been, motivational for other people watching, and maybe just giving a little bit of that push.
Yep. And as Anna mentioned, we do have some free resources. You can go to sendittosuccess.com/resources to grab those. And you can kind of, anytime that we get new ones, they're going to go there. So you can go there and pick those up. Again, we have a free resume guide and a teacher transition guide that are super helpful. Honestly, it's the same stuff that we use for our coaching. Obviously, we are able to go into a lot more detail with coaching, but the resources can get you started. And if anyone's watching this and they're interested in learning more about us and working with us, or even just interested in connecting, shoot me a DM on LinkedIn, and we can have a chat about ways that we can help. The links to the resources and to my LinkedIn are in the description below if you're on YouTube watching this now. So definitely get in there and connect. And seeing that we don't have any questions in chat, thank you so much for attending live. And for those of you guys watching it on the replay, we'll catch you on the flip side.
Thanks, Anna.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye.